Hi everyone, my name's Sophia. I'm a care leaver. Welcome to my channel, Care Leaver Sophia. Today I have a special guest with me. You might recognise her from YouTube. She's put out a lot more content than I have. Introducing Miss Elle Johnson. Do you want to say a few words?
I'm Elle, I am 20 and I've been in care since I was 11.
So we are doing a walkthrough today of the UCAS system, and if you are in the UK you'll probably know that UCAS is the system to which all students apply for British universities. This is for undergrad, postgrad and also conservatoires, and you can use it to both apply to university and also apply for clearing. With the recent A-level fiasco, I thought it was a really good idea to make some more university-centric videos for all of you nerds out there who would like to go to university, and especially for the care leavers out there. This sort of system is a bit more difficult to navigate, and so I thought we'd put together a video with the help of Elle, who is perfect for this as she goes to university in how many days now?
4 weeks.
So Elle, you're going to university. Where are you going? What are you doing?
I'm going to Loughborough University and I'm going to be doing Criminology Social Policy.
Incredible. What made you wanna do that?
Years ago, during my GCSEs, I started researching and having a look at the sort of things that I could do. And originally I was going to go down the straight law path, and then everybody I've spoken to who'd done law was like, no, don't do it, it's boring, it's rubbish. So I was like, okay, criminology is where I want to do. Like, everything in the criminology course I absolutely love. Every module that I've ever read on any course has intrigued me, and I've always wanted to go into that sort of career.
That's incredible. And then why Loughborough?
So I went on an applicant day, spoke to the people in my department, and I absolutely fell in love. Like, it felt like home. It felt like I belonged there. So I'd missed about 6 months because I was in the hospital. Nobody thought that I was really going to get the grades because obviously I'd been so ill, and then I changed families. So I got to results day, opened my results, a lot higher than ever anybody thought I was going to do. Check UCAS track, I just got into Bath. And I woke up the next day and I thought, you know, I don't want to go to Bath, I want Loughborough. So I called up the university, was like, can you please let me in? Like, I've done so well, I know I quite haven't met your grades, but I just got into Bath and their grades are so much higher than yours, please, like, this is all of my history, have every document you want, like, and they let me in. They sent me an email and said, yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yes, we love. And so when was this? Because you took a year out, right?
Yeah, so this was last summer.
And so what have you been up to this last year?
Well, the plan was I was going to work for 6 months and then go on a ski season, and I was supposed to be travelling for the next 6 months. And then COVID hit. I came home early from my ski season and I've been sat inside ever since.
So let's have a look at this form. So I'm currently on the first step of the UCAS form, which is personal details, and already we're hitting a bit of a hurdle because we've got filling out your title, your gender, first given names. If you have changed your name at any point, then you should put in if you've had a previous name in the past. And now postal address. I'm not sure how you navigated this, but I was like jumping around a few placements when I was applying for UCAS, so I used my school address for this. What about you?
I used my foster parents' address.
And then obviously if you weren't born in this country, pop in where you were. I was born in Sweden, so this is something I navigated as well, and you just have to try and find out what date you came to the UK. If, like me, you have no idea, just put the first of whatever month you think you arrived, and that will be fine. In terms of permanent residence, I think I went for the county that were looking after me at the time, and I put that as my permanent residence. So there's stuff here like unique learner number, and I figure that's what the school give you because I definitely didn't know mine.
Yeah, the school give you that.
Passport details. Have you always had your passport, Elle?
I did during UCAS, and when I first applied for my passport, I didn't have any identity documents whatsoever. I couldn't prove I existed. The only thing that I actually had was a photocopy of my birth certificate, but they don't actually accept that when you're applying for your passport. So I had to send every bit of documentation, proof of address and everything that I could including a letter that I was in care from 2 different local authorities, the one that I'd moved from and the one that I was in, and then a letter from my school, just as many references as I could find that I was actually who I said I was. Whacked it in an envelope along with a letter about where I'd been, my circumstances the last 10 years or so, and I just sent it to the passport office and I said, look, please can you give me a passport because I don't have any identity documents.
So if you are a British citizen, they don't make you fill out the passport details, which is great. By the looks of it, because this is all sort of like glossed over for me. Then in terms of student support, looking at fees, depending on how you're going to pay your tuition fees, I think most people are going to go for number 2 because that's
Student Finance England.
And then have you ever lived or worked in the EU? And that doesn't include the UK, so I assume probably no for most of you. Cool. Keep up to date with your application. Yeah, make sure that all your details are like up to date. So if you do move foster placement and you have put a foster carer's address down, or if you change your number for any reason, or you use a different email, make sure that UCAS knows, because if they have like really important updates, like for example a university giving you an offer or asking for extra credentials or whatever, you want to make sure you get that email, so make sure you keep everything up to date. Nominated access. Did you do this? I don't recognise this.
That's the person that is like not your next of kin, but if something happens or they need to get in touch with you. I put a teacher at school, but I know some people did social workers as well. I wouldn't recommend that just because the amount of social workers that I had in terms of social worker changes.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
You had a teacher just for UCAS?
Yeah, so she taught philosophy, I think, A-level, and we had a really good relationship because she was the person in the school where everybody went to for UCAS advice. She'd done UCAS stuff for like 20 years or something. She was absolutely brilliant, and she guided me throughout the whole process. I think because of how driven I was, she took a bit of a shine to me. You know, she's my best option. If I'm going to get into university, this is the woman that I need to be on first name terms with.
Do you want to give a shout out?
Miss Smith?
To all the Miss Smiths out there, thank you. Sweet, so now we get on to disabilities/special needs. So I've just filled this out with what I have, so I have PTSD. But to get here, there's a list right here, and if you click on it, you get a load of different options. You can select no disability, or you can select either, you know, something physical or something mental, or if you come under any of these special needs categories, click and then explain it in a bit more detail. I never applied for any of this because I hadn't been diagnosed with PTSD yet, but you have experience of navigating this, right?
For the disability thing, the thing they recommend you to do before you apply to UCAS, apply for a post-16 assessment. This is so important. Like, that was probably the most important thing that I did in terms of my whole UCAS thing. If you don't do that, you miss out on a lot of bursary opportunities and stuff like that. If you're in foster care, you tend to have something that's not quite right in terms of how you think or how you work. So for example, for me, I have a serious processing issue. That wasn't diagnosed until I did a post-16, the funding of which is actually done through your local authority. So they will fund a post-16 assessment for every foster kid. The way it's funded and how you apply for it is just a bit complicated, so definitely speak to a teacher at school and your social worker and ask about it and say, look, I need a post-16 assessment and I know the funding's there. So yeah, that would be my advice for that one. But if I didn't have that, I wouldn't get DSA. And if you haven't got DSA as a foster kid, if you have some kind of disability, so mine's a specific learning difficulty, I think it's classed under in terms of the Disability Act. But that is quite common with foster kids. You tend to find that anybody who's been through trauma has those kinds of problems. But it's just something to know, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have half of the funding that I did in terms of DSA. So
can you just explain what DSA is?
DSA is Disabled Students Allowance. So each child is entitled to a certain allowance depending on what your needs are. So dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, anything like that, or even if it's just a processing issue or something which is a bit more complicated. For that, you need medical evidence, and that's why you have a post-16 assessment. I think I had a 5-hour exam session with this lady who came in to assess me, and it's paid for by social services because it gives you funding in terms of university. So they give you like a laptop, for example, for university. I also got loads of different software which will aid me in terms of my education and university. So if I didn't have that, university is just a bit more difficult to navigate. And obviously having a laptop, a good working laptop when you're doing a degree, is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why you need a post-16 assessment.
Awesome, thank you very much for sharing that.
Is it the equality section where you have to tick the care leaver box?
Yeah.
You tick that box, oh my god, like 100% check that box, because if you don't check that box, it doesn't go through to the university that you're entitled to a care leaver bursary, which means you don't get any financial support from the uni at all if you don't tick that box.
There's activities in preparation for higher education. No, so if you've done something like NCS or one of the unique summer schools, then you can pop that in here. I think that's really cool that they've added that, because obviously not everyone has been able to attend stuff like this. And here we go, the most important bit of this entire video. This question, have you been in care? I have. So I'm gonna click yes.
Depending on which section you check for that is whether you're entitled to a bursary and how much bursary you're entitled to as well. 100% safe. That's like a UCAS advisor. Talk to them about bursaries in terms of uni and stuff.
To be honest, this looks a bit sporadic to me, the fact they're using just 1 and 3s everywhere. So it's 1 week to 3 months, 3 months to 1 year, 1 year to 3 years, or 3 years or more. So for example, if you have only been in care for 6 months, don't put that you've been in care for a year to 3 years because you think you'll get more funding. Like, don't lie. Just put like exactly how long you've been.
Like how they define in care is really, really complicated as well. So just check with your social worker for that one, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say talk to social worker and teacher for sure. I'm going to put 1 to 3 years because that's me. Because I went in super late as well. Okay, do any of your parents, step-parents or guardians have any higher education qualifications, such as degree, diploma or certificate of higher education? My birth parents didn't go to uni, so I'm going to say no. Or there's also a don't know button, so that's great. Occupational background. If you are under 21, oh no, please give the job title of your parent, step-parent or guardian who earns the most. If she or he is retired or unemployed, give their most recent job title. If you are 21 or over, please give your own job title. Click find and enter the job title. So there is an option that says you can prefer not to give this information. You can enter I prefer not to say. It might just be the most ideal option. So this is just saying that you have to apply for student finance in another form. You can't do it via UCAS. I had to post my application form because of how many just like sections I had to scrap, when it's just like, oh yeah, list the income of parent 1, and it's like I don't have parents.
It was incredibly awkward trying to fill that out, and I was like, I don't have parents. My local authority are my parents technically.
Okay, choices. Let's decide what we're gonna do. So institution code, don't worry, you don't have to know exactly what code or uni is, you just click see list. Boom, Loughborough University.
Do criminology and sociology.
Okay, well let's do that. Oh, are you doing a placement year?
Yes, I'm doing a 4-year course.
Oh, exciting! Do you know where you want to do your placement?
I'm thinking the Justice Department.
Okay, we've chosen 1 course. We're gonna choose 5 because I personally think like you're paying 25 quid for this application, you might as well like choose 5 unis, right? The price doesn't change on how many unis you apply to.
Just pick somewhere anywhere and make sure you go and visit all of the places you choose.
I went to the Bristol Offer Holders Open Day. And I turned up for this open day, and honestly, like 3 minutes into this guy's speech, I was like, I hate it here. I cannot come here. And I had this real realisation, and that would never have happened if I hadn't gone to the university and like experienced the whole vibe and stuff, whereas Oxford was just home from like the moment I stepped onto that. How did you navigate getting to open days? Because I worked the summer before year 13, so like I used that money to get to open days, but what about you?
So for me it was much better because my social worker offered to take me, so that was absolutely great. But luckily for me, my foster parents were taking Ben, and every open day that he went to, I just was like, okay, well, I'll strut along to these places. I would definitely say visit, because online, and especially on like brochures and stuff, they always look incredible, and especially if it's a really good university.
I know at my masters, I definitely went for the university's name as opposed to what university I thought would suit me best, and I do kind of regret the uni I went to, honestly, for my postgrad, and I think it's the reason I'm doing a second masters. But yeah, no, it's ridiculously important to choose a university that you want to go to, not that someone else wants you to go. So with places like Durham, Oxford, Cambridge. When they say campus, that is your college, and that's a whole different like collegiate system. If you're interested in learning more about the colleges, I'd say visit Cambridge's website, Oxford's website, Durham's website, and you'll learn about all the different colleges. You can also a random college to be assigned to. So here on Durham, they have no college preference, and that's what I went for when I applied to Durham, because I wasn't that fussed. But when I applied to Oxford, I very specifically went for a certain college because I thought I'd fit in there best. I actually went to a UCAS fair in year 12. So UCAS rented out the entirety of Exhibition Centre in London, and it was huge, and all the universities in the UK had stalls there. And I went round and I just got like a stack of prospectuses, and I just chatted to so many ambassadors who were students at the uni who had come along to this thing, and I got a vibe about them.
I googled all the like league tables, and I thought, okay, I'm going to the top 15 universities, order every single prospectus. I read them back to front, cover to cover for months, and then decided from that and narrowed them down onto which open days I was actually prepared to spend the money going to.
Also, a lot of unis do the alternate prospectus, and it's a prospectus that's written by the students, which is great because you kind of get that insight into what actually goes on.
Is it the student room who do like an online forum type thing of like what university students think of their university and they've rated them? I did look at that before I applied to Loughborough, and all of the student experiences was like, yeah, we love it here. And some of the top universities that you presume are like right up there for student experience aren't that brilliant, so definitely read some of those. I went through every single review because I was adamant that I was going to go to the right university.
Right, so I've got my choices down. Obviously when you're picking your choices, you do actually want to go with similar courses. We're just having fun and picking very different courses. The reason you want to pick similar courses is because you apply with one personal statement, and you kind of want that to fit all of your choices. So for example, we've got law, sports, music, biomed, sciences and criminology, so I'm not sure how we'd write this personal statement, but you very much want a personal statement that encapsulates your love for this specific subject.
Because I retook a year, I had no idea what years I actually went to the school and what courses I did. So luckily I was so organised when I was at my last school. I had a folder where I put every single certificate or documentation from any school that I'd been to, so I only had to look for that one folder. So all of my GCSE certificates, my work experience, for example, you have to put a section where it's like employment, and it gives you an option to put in work experience. So all of that was just in that one folder, and thank God I did that because I cannot even imagine where I'd find any of that information now.
I do the same thing. I have this pink folder that I've literally had since I was, 12, 13. And it has all like my ROGAS, like, yeah, here's a GCSE certificate, like, and it's also at the same time got like my birth certificate, which I also had to fight tooth and nail for to get from Sweden, and then it also has my, like my degree certificate and stuff like that. So literally just buy like a cheap folder and make sure whenever you move to a new foster placement, this is what you have, this is what you keep, never throw this away.
And then like when you put your institution in, you then put your qualifications in that institution.
Okay, add qualifications. Yeah, you'll have to put in the awarding organisation, and also whether it was English Lit A or English Lit B.
That's why I said have the certificates next to you, and the paper that's printed out on GCSE results day, you have to have that with you, of like each module breakdown, etc., and what you got. All of this you can do over the process of like a couple of months. So I remember for me, I was really, really quick with my UCAS because I was so excited to get to university. So I spent hours and hours and hours on mine. I think I got mine done with a few days. You don't have to do it in the process of a day.
Yay! Employment! So I'd worked some summer jobs, so I just put that in. What about you?
I'd worked 2 jobs and I'd done work experience as well, so I entered all of those in.
So you did your work experience at primary school?
Yeah, so I wanted to eliminate early on if I wanted to do that or not, and I did my work experience and decided that teaching wasn't really for me.
My job that I worked the summer before year 13, I worked at Legoland. So it was literally like dressing up as a costume character and like hanging out with kids, taking photos and stuff with them. It was such a fun job for a 17-year-old. I really encourage everyone to have part-time jobs when they're at school, or even better, like during the holidays. So much about budgeting and money and stuff, and I'm so glad I started early because I managed to make that salary that I made that summer last for my entire year 13. And I got to do stuff like, have a dinner with my friends on a special occasion. Okay, my favourite bit, the personal statement. Woohoo! So, first tip, do not write it in the UCAS form. Go away and slave over your personal statement in a Word doc or a Google doc for at least, 7 years. No, I'd say a month.
I took about 6 months to write mine.
Oh, okay, thank God. Okay, no, I'm saying at the very least, spend a month really making sure this personal statement is solidly you. Because it was Oxford I was applying to, or at least where I wanted to go, they wanted us to be make a super academic personal statement. And so I was trying to say, hey, I really love this composer, but I couldn't just say that. And so I ended up saying that I really loved this book that was about this composer. And I opened my personal statement by literally saying that I read this book and it just turned me on to Stravinsky. And then the problem was, when I got selected for my interview for Oxford, I haven't read the book. And I panicked. What if I get into that interview and they're like, oh, tell me your favourite part? And you know the app Audible? So I downloaded this app and I used a free credit to get this book, which is a huge, thick book. And it took me 12 hours to listen to. So I listened to it on the rest of the coach journey. And then that night I didn't sleep listening to this book. And obviously in all 3 of my Oxford interviews, the book never came up. And I was so mad. Because I was I read this fake book for nothing.
I know so many people who've done the opposite though, and they got to the interview and they hadn't read this book, and then they were asked about the book the entire time. Don't ever put a book or a show or anything in your personal statement and you've not watched it, read it, seen it, rehearsed it.
Okay, here we go. Here's my personal statement. Boom. I would say try and get it exactly on the dot.
It's the one bit that you have to sell yourself, so you definitely don't want to be doing half the characters that they've actually told you to. Is it this bit where your teacher has to confirm it? So the institution you're at, there's somebody who will go through all of the UCAS forms, tick off that they agree with your personal statement. They have to check it before you actually pay. That process takes a couple of weeks as well, because obviously your school are doing your entire year group.
Okay, so it will show you the lines and just make sure your formatting's okay. Mine's obviously not, because I haven't formatted it.
Well, hopefully you'll be spending a bit more time than 5 minutes.
Alright, reference. Who does your reference?
Mrs. Smith did my reference.
Yes, Miss Smith, we love you. Choose your fave teacher, or your UCAS teacher. I confirm I have contacted every one of my choices. Yeah, make sure you ask before you just put down a random reference.
Sit down with your teacher and do this section with them, because then it's just so much easier. I think this then goes off to your teacher, and your teacher does a reference.
Right, so now you can check all of your details in this really handy. Amazing. So we have all this choice to edit. Then when you're happy, you can click section complete. Okay, we're happy with our application form, and now what we're going to do is pay and send. So who paid for your application, Elle?
My foster mum paid for mine. However, it was reimbursed, I think, by social services.
What would happen now is we would click this button, which is pay and send, and we would pay the £25, whether it be your foster placement or yourself. Make sure to get that reimbursed from social services. And yeah, that was UCAS. Well, that was the video.
Yeah.
I hope that we've made UCAS look a bit easier. It genuinely isn't that hard. It just takes a lot of time and quite a bit of effort. For a lot of stuff, for example, the personal statement, work with that outside of the form, spend a bit of time on it. And also for various sections such as the reference and also education, it might be a good shout to have a folder like Elle and I have, which contains all your grades and all your marks up until this point, and also maybe talk to your teacher about the chance of sitting down with them and discussing, if you're going to put down their email as a reference, or if you're going to be listing certain choices. Make sure you're happy with your university choices. Don't listen to your teacher if you don't want to. And by that I don't mean, go full rebel. I mean just choose a university course that you think is right for you. Amazing. Well, Elle, thank you very much for joining me. You can always reach out to me on socials at Sophia Hall Sachs, both Instagram and Twitter. And obviously if you're applying in your care experience, feel free to send me an email at careleaversophia@yahoo.com. For now, good luck with all the university applications and have a great rest of your month.